I know we touched on some of this previously. I'm wondering if you could just go back to the hardest year for you as a filmmaker and why, and then the easiest year for you as a filmmaker, and what was the outcome of your thought after experiencing both years?
Wow, those were back to back. The worst year and my best year were back to back, and try to give you the cliff notes, but like 2010, like I mentioned earlier, started with my son getting in an accident. I was getting ready to shoot my third film. And on the day after his accident, I literally had sent my script to my producer that morning, the morning my son was injured. So my assistant director was already scheduling things and getting things, starting our prep. And I was supposed to shoot that in February. So, they were calling me, she was calling me, and people were calling me. I wasn't answering my phone. Obviously, my son was my #1 priority. And when I got on, they're like, "Where the hell are you? We got the script. We have questions about this, that, and the other." And I called them. I said, "My son was in an accident. He's in ICU, and I just don't have any answers for you. You have my script. You paid me for it. If you guys got to stay with that schedule, just do whatever you want with it. Get another director. I don't care." And my producer at the time knew my family, so he was just like, "Don't worry about anything. We're ready when you are." And they had a deal with Blockbuster, so they had to get movies out at certain times. He's like, "We'll figure it out." He's like, "Just don't worry about the movie. Take care of your family, and just keep us posted on how Julian's doing." And that just made me feel good from a producer to say me that, because I wouldn't have faulted them if he had just said, "You know what, we're gonna have to hire another director because we have a schedule, but of course, stay with your son." So it wasn't until like 3 weeks after that accident and he got home that my wife said, "Go make your movie, he's fine." And I said, "I didn't want to go anywhere, really. I just wanted to be with my son." She's like, you love this script, you put your heart in it. He's fine, he's totally fine, and go make your movie. So I called my producer. I said, let's get started on pre-production. He's like, "We're already there." I go, "Did you hire a director?" He's like, "Nope, we know you're coming back." I said, "All right." So I went and shot my third film, and I edited it in Mexico City. When I got back, I got told that, and this is the bad year, so I got told by an actor I was working with that he's got his life story produced. He's a bipolar Golden Gloves boxer who's an actor, and he got the money from these two brothers that wanted to produce this film. And then when I had gotten back from Mexico, I was told by my producer, "We have the money to do your fourth." So I was like, "Great, there, I'll get started." So I started not bartending as much because I was working so heavily on 2 scripts at the same time, which I don't necessarily suggest, but they were. What was great about that is when I would submit an idea for one of the scripts and it would come back from the producers and they didn't like the scene, I would take that scene and put it for my other script. So I was able to mix and match them a little bit. That was a great time. But then at the end of that process, like I was ready. I was like, "Okay, good, let's go." I was wanting to quit my job. I wanted the financing for both these to go through. And then there was some skepticism, and then Blockbuster went out of business, and that just killed the budget for the fourth film. So I was like, okay, I still have Counterpunch. And then those two punks that were producers decided that they were going to use my connections to do their thing, and they didn't want to produce our thing anymore. They were going to do their own thing, and they ended up doing some stereotypical, really crappy horror thing that they did. So I was just like left holding this bag, and I'm like, "Oh man, I'm like 2 months behind on our mortgage," and I'm like, I've got to get back to work. So I just threw those both, in a bin, and I was at work, and I was just like picking up shifts left and right. I was working 5-6 shifts a week, and I just was not making enough money because it was the economy turnaround at that time, and I just couldn't catch up. I couldn't catch up, man. And I just, by the time December rolled around, I was ready to premiere my third feature film. And it was very ironic because it was at Raleigh Studios, and it was probably the week before that. It's very strange when you're doing your dream, but your life is kind of going south, right? But this is going, it's this weird tug of war. And I just remember after telling my wife, look, I fucked up. We're losing the house. We're going to have to move. I don't know how aggressive they are going to be at coming to take the house. My biggest fear was coming home and there being a lock, and picking up my kids and there being a lock on our front door and we can't get into our house. I go, so we're going to have to move right after this shoot, right after the screening. And she was so gracious about it. And I remember sitting outside going, I'm screening my third feature film next week and I'm losing my house. How did I even fucking get here? And I remember going to Raleigh Studios to test out. I was basically at that point thinking I'm gonna stop. After the third one, I'm gonna stop. I've given up so much and sacrificed so much. After this third one, I'm done. And I remember going to Raleigh Studios and I was gonna do a test of my hard drive because the movie was on the hard drive. And the projectionist was there, and you know, these guys, they do this is their job. They've seen a million filmmakers come in and they could care less. He just wants to get in and out. We're gonna do a test. I'm gonna go every 10 minutes to see if it's okay. I'm like, okay, cool. I just have a concern about the first 10 minutes here and then we'll jump. And he's like, all right, so go ahead and sit down. You can call me. So I'm sitting in this Raleigh Studios screening, watching my movie up there. And I'm like this. First time I'm seeing it on the big screen. I've edited a million times on the small screen. But it was just so big, and the nuance and the performances, and it was there, and I'm just like watching it going, wow. I'm like watching it for the first time by myself in Raleigh Studios. And before I knew it, I'm like 2/3 the way through, and I haven't heard from the projectionist. And I'm like, oh shit, I only have like a half hour to really be there. I only have a half hour time to test my movie. So I turn around and he's like 4 rows behind me watching the movie. and I go like this to him, and he's like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. He's watching my movie. He got into my movie. And I just was like, it was just a great moment in such a dark time for me. And I remember going home and we watched the whole thing. So me and him watched the whole thing. He's like, man, I loved it. He's, I see so much crap come in here, man. He's like, what was your budget on that? And I told him, and he's like, no way. He's all, I'm gonna keep my eye on you. And I go, thanks so much, man. And then, you know, we had the screening. It was a great screening, and it got distribution. And but again, it wasn't enough money. By that time, I was already gotten another apartment, and we were moving out. So 2010 ended with us losing our house and moving, and you know, having movies out. I was still doing shorts. I was still writing. I was still doing all those things. So then, when we moved out, I was pretty much done with filmmaking. I basically said, this is too much of a sacrifice that I put on my family. If it was just me, who cares, right? But yeah, that was a tough conversation with my wife and kids. And
2010, sorry.
2010,
and, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we get to 2011, and it wasn't dire. We weren't homeless, you know. I had 3. It was actually a really good lesson in negotiation, particularly if I come against producers or distributors again. But I had 3 real estate agents that were like hawks, like rats, trying to get our house. And so I emailed them individually saying, I have 5 other real estate agents that are offering me this amount of money to move out in 3 weeks. Whichever one of you comes with the highest number is the one that's gonna get this house. Because I had to sign off on giving it to them. And so I got a good chunk of money to have a little bit of a nest egg, even though I was broke, my credit was shot, everything was shot, get us into a nice apartment, and then start over.
Sorry, just real quick, how did they know that they must have checked the bank records?
Oh yeah,
okay.
It's a whole racket, man. It's a whole racket. The banks were never going to, no intention of helping people stay in their homes, because it would have been very easy to do. So it's like January, February of 2011 now, and I'm done. My family's safe. We're in a nice place. I'm on a balcony. I'm reading a book. My producer calls. I'm like, oh, what does he want? Hey, what's up? Hey, man, 4th feature is on. We got some money. We're going to go forward. I go, no, I'm not doing it. And he's like, what do you mean you're not doing it? He's like, we love your script. We're going to go forward and shoot Mexico. I said, no, I'm not doing it. He's like, well, I go, what's the budget? And the budget was just ridiculously low. I go, my film can't be shot for that. He's like, we'll make it happen, man. They were looking out for their company. They wanted to stay relevant. I go, let me write something else that's smaller. No, we can make it, we can do it. And I said, all right, let's do it. And so then it was just hard to cast because the budget was so low. But I felt like, okay, here's my second shot, right? I didn't have to worry about money at this point. We had money in the bank. We were safe. I'm gonna go make another movie. I thought my career was done. That was a bad motivation to go make that movie because I pulled in some really great cast and I just didn't do right by them in that film. Even though I loved the process of it, it was still compromising too much for the budget. But we did it, and at the end of that, I was in Mexico on our last 2 nights of shooting, and the producer for the Counterpunch project calls me, says, where are you? I said, I'm in Mexico. He's like, I got the funding for Counterpunch now. You need to come and interview with these producers because they're interviewing directors from CAA and William Morris and all the big agencies. And I'm like, no, that's my movie, man. I wrote it. They're like, they're gonna pay you for the script, but they don't want you to direct it. I'm like, that's bullshit. And he says, well, when can you get here? I go, I wrap in 2 days. I'll be there in 2 days. And I go, set up a meeting for Monday. I get back on Sunday. He's like, okay. So I tell my editor who was with me on set at the time, because he was cutting the movie as I was shooting. That was my normal process. I love to do that. Haven't had the luxury of doing that. So I said, I told my editor, okay, stop what you're doing. He's like, what? I go, stop editing. I need you to cut me a trailer. He's like, why? I go, because our next gig is going to be based on how good that trailer is. He's all serious? I said, yeah. I go, you're coming with me on that one. I go, but I need you to cut it and you have 24 hours. He's like, oh, okay. So he's like cutting the trailer and he's not working on the movie. So my producer on that film is telling me, why isn't the editor working on the movie? He's working on a trailer already. I go, well, I would like the cast to see what, how the thing's coming together and so they feel good about what we're doing. And he's like, yeah, but we're losing time and money. And I said, yeah, I know, but just let us, he's almost done. Just let him finish the trailer. And then he'll get back to editing. So, okay, cool. So he spends like 2 days on this trailer and my producer's pissed. And we get into the room and he's like, I need to have a meeting with you. I go, okay, just a second. I bring the whole cast in. We're like, we own this, we're in this hotel and bring all the whole cast and crew in there. I go, Steven, play the trailer. Plays the trailer and everyone just loses it. The trailer just nails everything I'm trying to do with this movie. And my producer's very happy. So he's like, okay, no worries. So I get back on Monday, I have that trailer with me, and the producer, she's Hungarian, very tough. She's a dear friend of mine now. She's a very tough Hungarian woman, and I'm sitting in front of me, she's like, so why am I meeting with you? You're not with CAA, you're not with William Morris, you're not with this, you're not with that. Why am I even talking to you? We're gonna pay you as a writer. Why do you think you should direct this? And I said, well, I just shot this film I got back from. I'd love for you to see the trailer of it. What do you mean you just shot it? I go, I just wrapped yesterday. She's like, yesterday's Sunday? I said, yes. And you have a trailer already? I said, yes. Let me see. So I turn around. She's watching the trailer and she like folds my laptop down. She looks at me, she's like, okay. I go, thank you, appreciate your time.
Oh, wow.
Left. And she had another partner actually, and then she had called me and said, I need to speak to my partner first. I said, sure, no problem. It was like a 5-minute conversation after that, and I got that gig. So I got that right after I got back from, so I was in post-production on my 4th and in pre-production on my 5th. And that was my best year, man. It was just movie making nonstop. And yeah, it was great. And the 5th one, they both got distribution. The 5th one got picked up by Lionsgate and was on Netflix. It's actually, I just got word that it's making its China debut. This movie came out 5 years ago. It's making its China debut in October and its UK debut just last month. So that movie has still got legs. It's a boxing film, it's a genre film. So those films kind of, they can go a little bit, they go longer. They have a long shelf life. So that was my worst and best years back to back. And those two in themselves would be a book, but I managed to keep them to 2 chapters. So 2 very long chapters, but.
What was your takeaway of all that? Like just from having those back to back?
I didn't have time to think about anything. You know, I just didn't have time to think about it. I just felt like I've been through the worst of it, and I got 2 more opportunities to do something. And then, of course, after Counterpunch, we screened Counterpunch, and my producers from the 4th were like, now we got something. Do you have something for your 6th? I said, yes. And then shot that one in March of 2012, you know. So it's all started kind of, those relationships started because I was building something with them. At least I thought I was building something with them, which was a troupe of actors and everything else. And then it just started to rot from the inside out. And I had to walk away from all of that, everything I had built, because people had cheapened the entire thing for their own gain and for their own narcissism. And so since then, you know, when I started over, that's when I started Marigold. And Marigold was like, I'm gonna do something that nobody can copy. But some people tried to copy that as well. So, but that movie hasn't, I haven't put that one out there as much because I don't need to. I'm gonna wait until I can put it somewhere where people will see it. I'm in no hurry. I've got other things I'm writing. I have 6 films out there. I have an incredible reel. I don't need to just put it out there just to put it out there. I love it too much to just stream it on Amazon for, you know, you know, anybody can do that. That's not distribution. You know, I want it on Netflix. That's where I want it. I'm not even looking at a theatrical. I'm looking at just Netflix, you know. So I'm gonna hang on to it.
When did you start writing it?
Which one?
Marigold?
I didn't write anything. It's completely unscripted.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that one I would say is an outline. I would come up with scenarios and characters, and I would communicate those things to the actors, but they didn't have a script.
It's improv, okay.
Yeah, so I prefer unscripted only because it sounds like there wasn't a plan. There was a plan and there was a vision. We just weren't confined to dialogue. And it was really a tenuous job for my editor. And she was a new editor that I found. I love her to death because she found the story and she crafted the story and she stayed with me with that movie for a good 2 years. And now she's working on bigger and better things. So I'm real excited for her as well. So I'm a training ground for people who are gonna move on to bigger and better things.